I'm Jeanne Gehringer. I'm a dowser. Dowsing is also called water witching. Many people think of dowsing as the skill of finding water, but the skill of dowsing is so much more than finding water. Dowsing is your connection to your higher self and ultimately to source. Dowsing is not only allows us to tune into energies, but allows us to alter and modify them. The implements used in dowsing, usually dowsing rods or pendulums, are only indicators or a readout device of that connection. As a dowser for over 40 years, I apply dowsing to health, psychological, and spiritual well being. I've been fortunate to learn from some dowsing mentors, and I'm also blessed with healing intuition. I was a longtime member of the American Society of Dowsers and also with ORI from its beginning, and have been a frequent presenter of lectures and workshops at dowsing chapters, regional conferences, and ORI for many, many years. Today, let's talk about dowsing accurately through misinformation. Boy, have we been living through some tumultuous times in so many areas of our lives. We are overloaded with information, good, bad, and ugly, and sometimes a bad mix of all of the above. The onslaught of misinformation when we need clarity to make sound decisions is a severe problem and getting worse. As dowsers, we say, oh, just douse it, to help determine facts or what actions to take. But are we dowsing accurately, thoroughly, and importantly, are we keeping our own wishes, viewpoints, and assumptions out of the way in order to achieve the best dowsing results? The key to accurate dowsing is always in the question. A well worded dowsing question handles everything. The ability to construct a dowsing question that leads to accurate answers is a skill worth honing. Also, and very importantly, we need to keep our own wishes, viewpoints, and assumptions out of the way in order to achieve the most accurate and reliable dowsing results. All of us who are dowsers know that at times we really wish to have what the pendulum says or the rods say be true, and we have to put ourselves aside and let the truth come from source. So now let's discuss specific techniques in crafting a dowsing question to both improve our dowsing accuracy and to identify and remove assumptions that reduce the accuracy of dowsing. First, we want to formulate the question. Write it down. Why write it down? Because our monkey mind works so fast we can be doing several things at once. Our dowsing system, or dowsing team, if you will, our metaphysical team up here, listens to all that. And we have to be clear and precise as to what we're asking them. The best way to slow it down and get it precise is to write it down. Be specific. The spirit dowsing team is literal in its interpretation. If we douse on if there is water in our area, except for very few areas on this planet, there is going to be water. It would be different if we asked if it was potable water, if it was so many water gallons per minute. We have to be very specific and very literal. The question must be a definite request for information, not for an opinion. So, a request for information, not an opinion. And one question at a time only, please, folks. Keep your mind quiet if you can of other questions. And if you can't, write them down. We all have monkey mind, and one question at a time. And even I, after all these years, have written down a question and I'm dowsing it and find another floating right through it. And I have to say to Spirit, no, we're doing this one right down here. Okay, so first, it was formulate the question. Write the question down. Second, review your question. Look at it for assumptions in your question. Is the meaning of your words clear and easily understandable? Let me come up with an example here of looking for assumptions in a question. I had a person call me and wanted me to douse whether or not she had COVID-19. She felt she couldn't possibly have it because the only reason one could get COVID is if they were living in a state of fear. Now, there is an assumption that only if you're in a state of fear about COVID can you get COVID. Now, I am not saying that she was right or wrong in this assumption. I am saying it is an assumption. So we have to really look at what is and isn't an assumption in order to formulate our question. Okay. So first, we formulated the question and wrote it down. Second, we reviewed our question for assumptions and the meaning being clear and understandable. Third, we're going to use dowsing to test our question. So I love to use little charts. I only have one. It's a basic -10 to +10 chart. So the minus side would be the non-beneficial or negative side, and the plus side would be the beneficial or positive side. So almost everything can come down to it's on a scale from -10 to +10, with the 0 up the front being neither. Okay, you can make one up by hand or contact me and I'll send you one. Very simple to do. I really like to douse things myself according to percentage points or amounts of 10, because I don't like just a definite yes or no. I like to know the degrees of something. Okay. Using dowsing, test your question. So in percentage points from 0 to 100%, how accurate is the question you have written down according to source consciousness? So source is what we're going against, okay? We want to know how accurate is this question, okay? Next, in testing our question, in percentage points, we want to know how complete is the question according to source consciousness. So first we asked how accurate it is. Now we want to know how complete. I will give you an example. I love reading old texts, and as old as I can get in the original translations, because I like to know the word, I like to know from the beginning what was written down before it was changed by translations. And mind you, I am not lingual at all, so I'm relying on my dowsing. So I have this old Gnostic text that was translated into English from the original Aramaic. I dowsed it. How accurate was it according to source consciousness? It came up to near 100%, which is unbelievable. That's incredibly high. But then when I dowsed in percentage points, how complete was the question or the information according to source consciousness, I think it was down to 70 or 60%. So it was accurate but not complete. Now, what does that mean? It can mean enough was taken out over time that the meaning had changed, so that the meaning of the text wasn't as clear as it was when it was written. Pretend you have a recipe that you're giving to someone else, and it's your favorite. You really don't want to give it, but you take one or two items out and give it to the next person. Was that recipe accurate? Yeah. Was it complete? No. Does it make a difference? Oh, yeah. Worst tasting chocolate chip cookies in the world, right? So that is incredibly important between accuracy and completeness. The third part of testing your question is, in percentage points, how well is the question understood by your spirit dowsing team? Really important. If they don't understand it and they're going through source to answer this, how are we going to get a good answer? So under testing your question, we're looking for three things: accurate, complete, and how well is it understood by the spirit dowsing team. Now let me bring in an example of, we're listening to the news. This little talk is about trying to get good information amongst a whole mess of information. Say somebody says something on a news channel about whatever. Just write that line down. They say this country produces X number of barrels of oil a year. Okay. Whatever they say, you write it down and you go. How accurate is this information according to source consciousness? Okay. How complete is it? How well is that understood by the spirit team? So you can start breaking down what you're hearing by what you hear or what you read, and see how valid and how reliable it really is. Why is all this important? Because it's from all that information and how we're raised and where we come from. We develop our belief systems, our consciousness that may or may not get in our way of seeing things clearly, which in now and of late, I think is one of the biggest challenges we have, is how to break through it all and see things clearly. To all of you out there, I have done this talk before, but there's been a couple of changes. I used to say we wanted to go according to cosmic consciousness. Then I realized that was all of us and the world's cosmos added in. Nope, I don't want our messes in there. So went to checking things against source consciousness. Now you need to rework your question by substituting, omitting, or adding words until the question is as close to 100% as possible. Now, for those of you who have followed me for years and have a lot of my handouts through all of my talks, so that you know every one of those has been dowsed for every word, every phrase, how it's put together, what's in front of what. It is tedious. And that doesn't mean it can't change. I change them. Not often, but I change them occasionally and review them because life changes, things change, we get more information. So we have formulated the question. We don't want a sloppy question. We write it down. We review our question. We use dowsing to test our question by the important questions of how accurate, how complete, and how well understood is it. We reworked our question by substituting, omitting, or adding words. And when you're doing this with your pendulum, Each of you may have a different way, but know when your pendulum is indicating that you rephrase. Each of us has a different way with our pendulum telling us that, to rephrase or get another word or whatever. Okay. I'd like now to talk a little bit about how to keep out of our own way when we are dowsing. Our beliefs and attitudes are developed from a whole mix of things, from our family, our culture, our countries, what we see, what we hear, what we're exposed to. By dowsing our accuracy according to source consciousness, there is where we're able to clear out any bias that doesn't belong. So what if in doing this, you douse some things that aren't comfortable with you, that you find within your question or something, that the dowsing doesn't agree with a belief or supposition that you hold to be true? It's a great opportunity then to review that belief and determine if it's appropriate for you to have at this time. And douse it a million ways to see if what it is about it that's not coming out quite right for you, or maybe another way of dowsing it shows that it is. We want to look at beliefs. Do they serve our highest good? Letting go of one doesn't mean you were wrong. It just simply means you've moved on. And boy, at this time, we are definitely moving on and looking at and changing a lot about ourselves and others. So now you all have some guidelines to better dowsing. And we see that dowsing is the best fact checker of all. I do it for books. I do it for what I hear, on the news or whatever. And it's very interesting. Always remember, though, before you actually start your dowsing questions, you formulated them, you've written it down, you've got it done, before you really get into it, to do our little dowsing thing, which is to ask, may I, can I, should I ask this question before you proceed, because we must get permission. We dowsers have the best tool to navigate all aspects of life, but it is only as good as how well we use it. So, good evening, happy dowsing to everyone, and you can reach me by email, mjeanne@zianet.com. That's zianet.com. Z is in zebra. Have a great dowsing journey.